On behalf of the religious leaders, the speakers, and the project team, it's my incredible honor to welcome you all here to this press conference. My name is Naveed Akhtar, and I'm going to be your host today. So let's start with some domestic points. At exactly 1400 hours, the world's most prominent religious leaders will address the world simultaneously in a joint appeal to be released on Twitter. The leaders will ask us all to do one simple thing, and that's to make friends across religions. They're doing this to heal a very common and dangerous misconception that fuels social tension and fear. This statement will be preceded by an introduction to their appeal by the initiator of this project and the experts who will explain its relevance. After the release, there will be plenty of time to ask questions, and all materials shared with you during this press conference will be available on a special press site and in the folder that's going to be handed to you after the conference. I also ask that you hold all questions until the end of the press conference, which is being streamed live on various channels and on Twitter. So the following leaders will share their appeal with you in 30 minutes. In addition to this joint appeal, the leaders will give their own in-depth visions on a special online channel, and that will be opened directly after the statement goes out. Various experts have reported about this misunderstanding that people think they're being viewed negatively by the other, while research shows in reality that the vast majority of people are very open to people with other beliefs. So first, let's look at a 2-minute clip that illustrates this misunderstanding. It offers a global cross-section of views from across the world.
I feel like they think I'm a terrorist, that I am a bad person, and that is purely based on how I look and how I'm not even dressed, it's just the color of my skin.
我觉得他会认为我们之间是有隔膜的，我们不属于同一群人，然后他们可能是会希望用他们的语言，用他们的 passion.
يعني أنا متخيل لو أنا في فرح وواقف قدام الكنيسة وفي مثلا مجموعة عمال مسلمين معدين، احتمال كبير إن هم يحسوا إن إحنا بنتصرف بخلاعة في الفرح مثلا، أو إحنا عندنا الخلاعة دي حاجة عادية.
Я думаю, что не все религии учат состраданию. Многие даже наоборот.
पहली बार देखने के लिए सोचने मेरे तो डरनगे हो दूर जाएंगे मेरे तो क्योंकि मेरे स्वरूप है पूरे स्वरूप चे हमें हाँ आतंकवादी मंदिर साड़ू देख के डरते नहीं साड़ते आतंकवादी मंदिर ने साड़
Well, I'm afraid they'll be hesitant to strike a conversation right away.
Nos ven como personas raras. ¿Por qué? Porque nosotros no practicamos ni pues muchas tradiciones que la mayoría de las religiones practican.
Fasting ni nyako kila mtu ndio. Kwanza nikiwa kama mimi Muislamu na maybe kanzu leo. Kama kanzu na kila kitu. Na mimi natembea kwa soko. Kila mtu anatoroka. Hata mtu wa soko atafunga soko.
Menurut saya, mungkin mereka akan takut dan tidak nyaman bersama saya. Karena banyak sekali berita-berita di televisi dan juga media sosial yang mengatakan kalau Islam itu tidak intoleran terhadap agama lain sekarang ini.
I think that everybody is trained within their religion to feel like they're right. So I think at a basic level they would just disagree with me. Like they would think that they are right and I was wrong.
Ik denk dat moslims denken dat christenen minder zijn.
I think people are very scared of my religious group. I think they see people who look like me in public transport and they think, do I really want to get on this bus?
So from looking at these clips, you can understand the scale of the problem. We're now going to hear a statement from Professor Gregory Reichberg from the Peace Research Institute in Oslo. And he's going to explain why this common global misunderstanding is so dangerous and it can contribute to fueling social tension.
I conduct research on issues at the conjunction of war, peace, philosophy, and religion. Many people worry that they're being viewed negatively by others. So if you're a Christian, you fear that you're being viewed negatively by Muslims. If you're a Muslim, you fear that you're being viewed negatively by Christians. The question is, can prejudice and ignorance about the beliefs and practices of the religious other lead to social tensions? I mean, I think it's very clear that they can. The problem is that sometimes we're terribly mistaken about other people's intentions. Sometimes we can misidentify them, and so we end up using force. We end up, using harsh words. We end up acting aggressively out of fear when we've just mistaken about what the other person intended. When we fear another, and we start reading intentions into the other, that really sets us up for a bad dynamic, and unfortunately tends to produce what we fear, right? Because when one gets into dynamics of fear, eliciting, the reaction of self-defense, it becomes what's called the security dilemma, where each person fearing something similar from the other tries to preempt it before the other does, and each tries to preempt. And so one ends up engaging in conflict, and again, it need not be armed conflict, it can be other lesser forms of conflict, needlessly. Prejudice and ignorance usually functions most effectively to exacerbate conflict when there is little existential contact between the individual and the would-be adversary, or the person who's thought to be the negative other. Over the course of history, we have many examples of how these sorts of negative imaging can occur. I mean, the negative imaging about Jews and Christian communities, lots of examples of this sort of thing, and how, again, it can make conflicts worse. One way that it makes conflict worse is that it dehumanizes the other. We have to beware of all the negative messaging, that the negative messaging in a way cuts counter to our instinctive reaction, this sort of natural openness that we have.
So we've got more evidence there that shows you that people think they're being viewed negatively by the other, while in fact the religious other is actually very open towards people of other beliefs and faith, no matter from what religion they're from. Martin Lampert of the Global Research Institute, Motive Action, will share with you his new research findings in a 2-minute clip. Martin is also here with us today, so he'll be able to answer your questions at the end of the press conference, and a full study will be available on the press site.
I'd like to inform you about the findings of a large study we conducted in 24 countries among 56,000 people. Our locality study enables us to zoom in and out on the values and lives of people from all continents and religions. The key research question we would like to answer today is there a potential for a message of friendship across religions? The answer in short is yes, very clearly. Our research shows that the majority of people of every religion have reported that they are always open to people with another religion or philosophy of life. Only 1 in 10 people of every religion say that they are not open to people with another religion, and on average 1 in 4 scores neutral. Therefore, we conclude that a message promoting friendship across religions is likely to resonate with the majority of religious people around the world. And that is a lot of people. In fact, 84% of the world population is religious, and this number is expected to grow in the future. As we just learned from Professor Reichberg, people still currently think that those from other religions are not open to a message of friendship. This incorrect assumption could be addressed by the religious leaders if they give a clear demonstration of friendship across religions to all people. Based on the Glocalities data, we expect that such an example will be welcomed by the majority of people across the globe, because the study reveals that friendship is one of the highest scoring values. Friendship is one of the most widely cherished values amongst people from all religions and among non-religious people all over the world. The potential power of a call for friendship by religious leaders is also confirmed by high scores amongst religious and non-religious people on the values wanting to help each other and having the drive to learn new things.
So, now let me introduce you to the chief organizer and spokesperson on behalf of the leaders. Dr. Ellen Goshen-Gottstein is a rabbi, an academic, and an author of many books and collaborative research projects on interfaith relations. Over 20 years ago, he founded and since then has directed the Elijah Interfaith Institute. Their premier task has been to deepen understanding, foster friendship, and increase unity between religious leaders and communities. Through a study, spiritual sharing, and a rich program, they've transformed the attitudes and mindsets of thousands of religious leaders, developing friendship and trust. Alon has been the driving force behind this campaign, and he will be the official spokesperson.
Thank you, Naveed. We're here in London today broadcasting a global message at the moment that the entire world is transfixed by the sight of a burning tower and by feelings of sympathy and concern for the victims and the families of people who've been entrapped in that tower. We think of religious leaders, we therefore think of a message of compassion, a message of solidarity, and all of us in the project would like to extend our heartfelt sympathy and prayers for the victims, for the families, for the entire community. London has known a lot of bad news recently. We hope today is a moment of sharing some good news with you. And those good news come from everything we've just heard from Naveed and all the presentations we've just had. If the reality is that people really are open, then we need to deliver a positive message of friendship. And what better way to deliver that message than by soliciting the voice of prominent world religious leaders who can reach out to their communities in a message of friendship which will allow them to go beyond fear, to cultivate trust, to strengthen social cohesion by building friendship across the differences within the society. Naveed mentioned that I've been engaged in this work for the past 20 years, bringing together religious leaders and scholars, and we have the experience of cultivating friendship, of sharing wisdom across religions. We know it can work. And yet, the present campaign, or the present initiative more correctly, has been a great challenge for us. It's a challenge because we seek to reach the man and woman on the street with a message of friendship. How to do that? How to convey that? How to make it speak in a way that resonates with them? And it's a historic moment not only because all these religious leaders offer their voice in one common appeal, but because in some way we have here an advance in religious teaching. For the first time, these religious leaders are articulating something novel, something authentic, and yet something novel about their traditions. In order to understand that, let me backtrack for a moment to my own story and something of the story of the religious leaders who have been involved in this appeal. I too grew up typical Orthodox young man in Jerusalem. Relationships with other religions were never part of my life. My own life journey has been a life journey of growing friendships and in the process growing myself, growing to become a better Jew, growing as someone who has what to offer to the Jewish people because I have been enriched through the relationships, the wisdom, and the friendships that I've been able and been blessed to cultivate across a variety of religious traditions. Many of the religious leaders, whose voice we will hear in a very short while, have similarly benefited from these kinds of experiences. And these religious leaders are bringing to you a kind of testimony of what they have learned, a way of being in this world that doesn't base itself on competition, hate, violence, but on friendship, trust, and growing and sharing together for the common welfare of the world. And it is our common hope at the Elijah Institute and all the leaders who have signed on to this appeal that we can inspire the man and woman on the street to recognize, to cultivate, and to practice a new way of being in the world, a way that's characterized through this theme of friendship across religions. Through this, we can lead to a world where tension will be reduced. It may not be eliminated, but it can be significantly reduced when we look at the other and we recognize he's not a threat. He or she is a friend. Why is this novel? Well, we've had good teachings in all religions. I think everyone knows the golden rule. And the golden rule is a principle that's common to all religions. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Confucianism, name it, the golden rule is there. The golden rule says, do unto others as you would do unto yourself, or don't do unto others as you wouldn't do unto yourself. I'm a rabbi, so here goes the Jewish version. A potential convert came to a sage more or less around the time of Jesus and said to him, sage was called Hillel, he said to him, teach me the whole Torah while standing on one foot. The convert would be standing on one foot. And Hillel answered to him, do not do unto others as you would not want to have done unto yourself. This is the core. The rest is commentary. The same principle can be found in various religions, all of which give this common teaching, which in and of itself does a lot of good for society. And yet, today, we need to go further. We have to find positive meaning in relationships. We have to find stronger antidotes to hatred, to intolerance, and to violence. We need a teaching of friendship for the world today. We need to develop this teaching of friendship not just as a message of one religion, but as a common message that all religions jointly deliver to humanity, to all followers of all religions and members of humanity who are not religiously affiliated. They all need to receive this new teaching of friendship. To date, friendship has been a value that has been mostly taught within. The in-group has had friends, the out-group has very often had a different kind of treatment. What we are saying in today's appeal is that friendship extends and expands beyond the inner group, beyond the limited group, friendship to all, friendship across religions. So, we hear so often that religion is dead, teachings are old, it doesn't have the capacity to adapt itself to the times. What beautiful example of the capacity of religion to adapt itself to contemporary circumstances. What more beautiful example than the ability of religious leaders across such a diverse scope of religions to come together and to articulate a new teaching, classically rooted, justified by their tradition, and yet new for the world today, in which they address what the world needs today. They offer the world a contemporary teaching of universal friendship. Now, let's talk about some of the hard truths. We saw the clip that illustrated the attitude on the man and the woman, interesting, all young people on the street, and how there's fear, and that fear comes from somewhere. It comes from the fact that people are practicing religion in a different way. It's not as if everyone is practicing this universal friendship. So, when religious leaders are calling for friendship, what in fact they're saying is, this is the way to move forward in religion. We affirm this way of being religious. We reject another way. We're making a choice within our tradition. We're making a choice within our sources. We're making a choice how it is that we would like to guide our faithful and all of humanity, how to guide them to be religious in today's world. Now, I am a theologian, a scholar. I work with religions. I am thrilled at the fact that we find here a live moment of a new articulation of contemporary religious teaching that comes across from the teaching of the diverse religions. It's a moment of true, almost revelation, a moment of coming together in appropriate teaching. It's a religious moment, a small epiphany. We hope that with your help, it can be a moment of big epiphany for humanity as it moves towards a new paradigm of making friendship. Now, it's good news. It's good news that we can share our experience over all these years of making friends and share that experience more broadly. But we also have to ask, how come this experience is a secret? How come most people are afraid? How come most people don't really know that you can have friends across religions? And this involves us in some critical thinking about the state of religion today. You cannot move forward in a constructive moment and offer a new teaching without recognizing also where the problems are. You cannot ignore the problems if you seek a healing, if you seek a solution. And therefore, I'd like to offer 3 pointers as to where the problem may be rooted and why what we are offering the world today may not be all that well known. 1, religions are meant to raise humanity to spiritual heights. Love of the other and the deeper unity of mankind are fundamental teachings of all religions. All religions have these teachings, regardless of how the religion looks today. And yet, something else is happening in the actual lived traditions. Somehow, group interests, identity interests, political interests, they all come at the expense of that higher calling of the religion. So somehow, religions are malfunctioning. 2, the training of religious leaders. Because religions all too often malfunction due to the identitarian political forces, the training of religious leaders, especially local religious leaders, isn't always good enough. Very often they are taught to serve the group interests, the political context, the geographical needs, and do not sufficiently integrate the depth of the tradition, its higher vision, its higher purpose. So we're dealing with an issue of education within the religions. 3, the political dimension that I already alluded to all too often causes loss of spiritual vision. When we look around and we see where does religion malfunction and where does hatred rise, almost inevitably it is related to some kind of a political context. And the coming together of politics and religion all too often spells a loss of spiritual vision. But this need not be the case. Because of the importance of religious leaders to traditions, and because they are the voice of authority, they are the ones who guide, shape, and direct the tradition, they have the ability to invite us to rise above these limitations, to reframe our horizons, to reorient our education. And that's what's happening today. The world's most prominent religious leaders are delivering a common vision within their traditions and to the world at large. This is important because it reminds us of the highest teachings that are in our traditions. And let me illustrate these difficulties in higher tradition and historical reality once again from my own tradition. Judaism is a tradition that has a great universal vision for all humanity. And yet, Jewish history has been a history of persecution that all too often has led to a narrowing of vision, to the erection of walls, to suspicion, even to xenophobia. The spiritual giants in our tradition, in my tradition, have been able to rise above that. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, a great Hasidic mystical leader, was able to articulate a universal vision of compassion that cuts across all religious differences, all human differences. It's the foundation of existence, compassion. Rabbi Abram Isaac Kook, the first chief rabbi, then Palestine, can speak of universal friendship as what Judaism has to bring to the world. The teachings are there. We simply have to know how to touch into them. Or let me take another example from Christianity. One of the projects that I edited, a project called The Religious Other, From Hostility to Hospitality, featured an essay by Bishop Stephen Sykes here in England. Bishop Sykes looked at the question of early Christian teachings as expressed in the New Testament. How come Jesus, who offered a teaching of love, ended up engendering a community that practiced hate towards the other? There's something fundamental already in the earliest Christian community that somehow deviated from the original message. And Sykes suggests it is because they were fighting for their identity. And when there's identity fighting between different groups, you get tension and somehow you lose the message. The solution: recover the message, rise above these conflicts, remain true to the higher orienting principle of your tradition. Now, I could multiply these examples, but I want to say, and I know for many people they're thinking, well, what about Islam? The same is true for Islam. I've worked with so many Muslim scholars, with so many Muslim leaders. I know what the vision of an Islam can be, that is an authentic Islam can be, that is so different from the prevalent image of a violent, conflict-ridden Islam. Go deeper in any tradition, Islam included, you will discover that teaching. And this is what our religious leaders are urging us to do today. I'm grateful to the world's religious leaders for joining in this appeal. My dream is that this appeal will stimulate the man and woman on the street to rethink the attitudes they hold, to open up to friendship across religions, to learn about other faiths. A call like today's call is amazing, but we have to equip people with practical steps by means of which they can realize these calls. To this end, we've designed toolkits. One toolkit has been designed for the common person, where she can find recommendations for practicing friendship across religions in everyday life. The other toolkit is designed for religious leaders, by means of which they can engage their community and share not only friendship, but also share the wisdom and the teachings of their traditions so they can be enriched. So in particular, I'd like to invite religious leaders across the world to download our kit in order to implement and advance a community-oriented program of study. The toolkits will offer you some of the specific recommendations that you will see in just a moment in the presentation in the words of our religious leaders. Conclusion. I have to say thank you. My greatest riches are my friends, and this project has brought many friends to my life. None of this would have been possible without Mark Warda. Mark is founder of Havas Lems and Let'sHeal.org. Mark is the one who first dreamed this project, and we have been dreaming together until this moment when the project is coming alive. Not only Mark, but his entire team, Dennis, Bram, Ali, and many partners, they're all part of the story. I believe they're part of the emerging success. Friendship touches the heart and enriches our life. It provides us with meaning, security, and happiness. Nelson Mandela said, "No one is born hating. Friendship is our natural state, a beautiful state. Let us follow the example of the religious leaders. Let us make friendship and knowledge of the other our way of being in the world today." Thank you.
Thank you, Alon. I wish you and the Elijah Interfaith Institute success in taking the project forward. And now we're going to continue with the statement of the religious leaders. In a moment, the statement will be released in 15 languages on Twitter and later via a YouTube channel, youtube.com/makefriends. After the statement, you will have the chance to ask questions and to speak to everyone individually.
We are called, as we like to say, to look into one another's eyes in order to see more deeply and in order to recognize the beauty of God in every living human being.
Our advice is to make friends to followers of all religions.
Muy importante porque mi vida religiosa se enriqueció con explicaciones de él. Se enriqueció muchísimo, ¿no? Y supongo que también algunas mías, ¿no? Bueno.
Fue nuestra vocación religiosa la que propició el que nos encontremos en la vida.
No matter from which side of the mountain you are climbing, we should be helping each other so that we can all get to the same place. So there is need for people to make friends.
وألا نبحث عن أوجه الخلافات التي تختص بكل طائفة عن الأخرى.
Personal contact, personal friendship. Then we can exchange deeper level of experience.
Honor other religions like you do your own.
We need to get together and know one another, just to discover and explore those commonalities.
That starts a process where prejudices go away, where new insights are born, and where basically hope is born.
It's not complicated. I would say to everyone, start with sharing what we all share, which is the pleasure of conversation.
One of the wonderful things about spending time with people completely unlike you is you discover how much you have in common. The same fears, the same hopes, the same concerns.
I think I'll keep it very simple. It's probably time to talk less, listen more.
അങ്ങനെ വിശ്വസൗഹാർദ്ദ ഒരു യാഥാർത്ഥ്യമാകട്ടെ.
The statement is now available for everyone to share all over the internet by the religious, the secular, men and women, young and old. And I pray that this message offers hope to the fearful and compassion to the rejected, and that it contributes to a more loving and open world. We will now do a round of questions, and there's plenty of room to do individual interviews as well. So please don't forget to take the folder with the printed release and the USB stick full of HD material in many languages. All the press material can be found here on this website and on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/makefriends. Thank you so much for coming today.